Hey, I'm Mandy. Welcome to the podcast. Now let's get right into talking business, marketing, and words of wisdom. I am Amanda Walsh. You can call me Mandy, the real estate broker. And I have Tanner Mulvihill here with Bayfield Home Loans. And we just finished doing a presentation at my office on a VA training and included some CE. I had two things, two takeaways. And even though 20 years in the business, I think you're always learning something,
For sure. Yep.
You're always learning. But what I wanted to ask you is, I have a couple kind of off-the-cuff questions for Tanner. What is the number one thing that you find that, like, your first-time home buyer, for instance, maybe doesn't know, and maybe something that could benefit them?
Gotcha. First-time buyers, I would say they don't really understand the process.
Right.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because, as video's gotten more important, I thought about I really need to drill down a good video on, like, step one happens and then step two, because for us, we're doing this 100 times a year,
Right.
so it's just like bang, bang, bang. And I think we sometimes forget that if it was your first time, what would you...
Right.
Right. And we try to do a good job of that, but sometimes you have to even go further than you think.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And you might have touched on this earlier. I have on here, what is a loan product you're really excited about currently? But you specialize in VA home loans.
I do specialize in VA.
What is it about those that you love?
I love helping veterans purchase their home. I think VA is misunderstood the most. So when you really get into the level of knowing it well and being able to help people take advantage of it,
Right.
That's what I love.
Leverage.
Leveraging, because so many VA buyers, if you told the average VA buyer, hey, you could have 2 houses in the next 3 years if you wanted to, they'd be like, well, how does that, and not put any money down,
Right.
How does that work? Well, it's like buy your first house for $250 or whatever your number is, hang on to that as a rental and move on to the next one.
Yes, I think that's the best retirement plan, that, someone who's just getting started out, they start getting that housing allowance, their first duty station, they should go ahead and buy something, hire someone to professionally manage it, and, when they retire in 20, 30 years, it's paid for.
Yeah.
And now it is straight income, and most likely another VA person has come in and paid their mortgage for them.
For that period of time, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe they end up, selling 2 properties one day and buying their dream home now, so.
And to caveat on that point, sometimes I think buyers don't see that and they're like, oh, I want it to have all these bells and whistles.
Right.
It's like, no, less bells and whistles, because you want it, if you plan to have it as an investment property, you don't necessarily need the Corian countertops and Viking stoves or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think nowadays, you just have to get started.
Yes.
Every house it's not going to have everything you want, but you just need to get in and start building that equity.
Yep.
Because even though the market goes like this, the constant trend is this.
Right.
So, and it's about the long-term game.
Yep.
So it's not a get rich
wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah.
The sooner you can start, the better.
And then I guess, what would be your advice for someone who thinks that they cannot buy a home? That's my last question.
I think that the only detrimental factor to not buying is going to be how much money you make. Because if you have credit problems, we can get those fixed. If you have down payment issues, we can work around that. We can't work around somebody that makes $12 an hour and wants to buy a $350,000 house.
Right.
But outside of that, we can figure out everything else if you're talking to the right people.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming to my office today and providing my agents the amazing training you did, and then popping on here for a quick minute.
It was a pleasure, and I would just like to point out, if anybody has not listened to the Virginia's for Realtors podcast yet, I had an excellent guest on the show who gave a lot of great information. So I believe that is either episode 92 or 93. So awesome. Amanda Walsh on the podcast.
Sweet. Thank you.